Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. Welcome to the latest webinar in our chapter webinar series. My name is Bahia Simons-Lane, and I am the Executive Director of USJETAA. I will be moderating today's webinar. Thank you to Takeshi Yoshida, Marianne Sellis, and Asuka Ichikawa of the Japan Foundation CGP New York office for joining us today. Today's webinar will provide information about the Japan Foundation and the Center for Global Partnerships programs and items on loan that would be relevant for JETAA chapters interested in strengthening and diversifying their events and programming to their alumni. The speakers will also share instructions and tips on how to apply for the available grants. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce USJETAA, the United States Japan Exchange and Teaching Program Alumni Association. USJETAA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that furthers the U.S.-Japan relationship by supporting alumni of the JET program. We provide resources for individual JET alumni, JETAA chapters nationwide, and potential JET participants. We support the leadership of JETAA chapters with programming, membership recruitment, chapter management, leadership, professional development, and fundraising. And we support the JET program and engage the U.S.-Japan community. We currently run 4 annual programs. The first is a partnership with the Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA to provide grant funding to JETAA chapters and subchapters so that they can hold events in their local communities that will help further the U.S.-Japan relationship. We are accepting applications for this program until July 30th, so there is still time for chapters to apply. We also facilitate a leadership program funded by the Japan Foundation CGP and CLARE, where representatives from USJETAA visit JETAA chapters and subchapters to hold tailored workshops focused on leadership and growth. Applications for this program are accepted on a rolling basis. Our third program is the webinar series that this webinar is a part of. We hold 2 different series, one targeted at JETAA chapter leaders like this one, and the other for individual JET alumni. Our last program is the Micro Grant Initiative, in which we partner with the U.S. Embassy Tokyo to offer funding for current American JETs so that they can hold projects in their schools and communities. Applications for this year's grant will open in October. Lastly, I'd like to mention that in the wake of the floods in Western Japan, we are also raising funds for the Japan Platform's on-the-ground recovery effort. For details and to donate, please visit our website at usjetaa.org. Before I turn the mic over to the presenters, I'd like to let listeners know that we are recording this webinar and we'll be posting it on our website for those who can't attend. There will be time for questions at the end, so please hold your questions until the end or type them into the chat box. To ask a question at the end, use the raise hand function and I will let you know when you may speak. Now I will turn over the webinar to the presenters.
Hi, Bahia. Thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Marianne Sellis. I'm the Associate Program Officer of the Grassroots Exchange and Education Program at Center for Global Partnership. I am joined here by my colleagues, Takeshi Yoshida, as well as Asuka Ichikawa. So we are looking forward to sharing more information about our organization, as well as opportunities to help JET chapters out there with their event planning and their capacity building as well. So I am now going to share with you my presentation. So my PowerPoint slide. How does that look, Bahia? Does that look good to you?
Looks great.
Okay, wonderful. So again, we are the Japan Foundation and the Center for Global Partnership. And as I had mentioned before, this presentation will be broken down into 2 parts. So first, I'm gonna share with you information about the Japan Foundation and the Center for Global Partnership, who we are, where we work, as well as our approaches. And then the second part of this webinar will focus on possible ideas and programs to help support local JET alumni chapters all throughout the US. So to give you a little bit of background, we are the Japan Foundation and the Center for Global Partnership. So the Japan Foundation was founded in 1972 with main headquarters in Tokyo, and they have a network of about 20 or so offices in about 21 countries worldwide. In the US, there are actually 2 offices, one in New York and one in LA. The New York office focuses more on Japanese language education, arts and culture, and Japanese studies, whereas in the Los Angeles office only primarily works with Japanese language education. Apart from that, the Center for Global Partnership, or CGP, was born out of the Japan Foundation in 1991, and we only have offices in Tokyo and New York, and they have the specific mission. CGP has the specific mission to focus only on US and Japan relationships and strengthening that partnership through kind of cultivating this next generation of leaders to support that relationship, which is a little different from the mission of the Japan Foundation, which is to overall promote the cultural exchange and study about Japan and Japanese culture. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. So there's a distinction with both organizations, but essentially in the New York office, the way we operate, we are both housed in the same office, the Japan Foundation and CGP. So now I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we do and how we do it. So essentially, the Japan Foundation is broken down to 3 big topics. So Japanese language education overseas, arts and culture, and then Japanese studies and intellectual exchange. So Japanese language kind of focuses more on infrastructure and environment that helps promote and cultivate education and learning about the language. And that's also kind of broken down regionally and by country as well. The second pillar is the arts and culture. So that kind of focuses more on the presentation of Japanese culture and arts. You guys might be familiar with the National Cherry Blossom Festival. You know, there's a huge arts and culture kind of a presence from our side on that end. And we also do international exchange for artists to come present their work here in the US as well. The third one is Japanese studies and intellectual exchange. So this is more academic related as well as policy related as well. So this is supporting researchers and institutes focusing on Japanese studies and actually kind of helping to build the capacity of these Japanese studies to help recruit more students to study about Japanese language and Japanese culture. On the policy level, this helps encourage intellectual dialogue and joint research among opinion leaders that are focused on the U.S.-Japan relationship. So those are our 3 major kind of pillars. And as you can kind of see, you know, there is some sort of component, some community and grassroots related component, both in the Japanese language education as well as the arts and culture component as well. So now I want to talk about the ways in which we approach our grant making and our target regions, because I think that's really important to understand the breadth and the variety of the different grant programs and ideas that we have to offer various institutions and organizations and people. So the first approach that we usually do is generating interest. So that's kind of creating that initial spark in someone to become initially kind of interested about Japan. So as you can see, there are different ways to do that. So there's anime and manga, fashion, food, film, and literature. And a lot of this generating interest, these kinds of efforts are usually at the grassroots and the community level. So this can be from, you know, holding a film festival or a fashion show or anything kind of showing anime or manga on that kind of level to the local community and local and public people that are related to, that are community members essentially. So that's at that generating spark kind of level. So the next kind of phase is, you know, once that spark has been kind of ignited, we want to be able to cultivate and nurture and develop that interest in different ways and different facets as well. And how we do that is through exchanges, either like people-to-people exchanges, both on the youth kind of level. We do also promote study tours for teachers, as well as policy leaders on that academic level as well. We also do individual fellowships. For example, Japanese Studies offers fellowships for researchers and academics to help refine or promote their study or their research into Japan. And then third is Japanese language opportunities. So that could be, again, that Japanese language component. So we, the JLPT is one of them, and perhaps like the Japan Bowls and the Japan speech contests is another way we help nurture that interest in Japan. And then finally, after we've generated that spark and after we've nurtured people on an individual level, we help sustain that interest through developing various networks. And so this is actually at a broader national or international level as well. So as you can see here, there are different ways we help develop these networks. So as you may see here, the USJETAA is also a proud project that we have been happy to support these past few years that help. And essentially, USJETAA helps to serve as that umbrella network organization for the local JET chapters out there like yourselves. And you know, our kind of goal for USJETAA is to help support and nurture these JET chapters so they may do their work on the community and local level. Another example from that is, in addition to USJETAA, is NAJAS, the National Association for Japan-America Societies. I'm not sure if any of you work with your Japan-America societies at the local level, but the National Association also works as a network umbrella organization for these smaller JASs, and they also provide mentorship, executive learning, as well as mini grant programs to help refine their program development as well. Finally, in addition to USJETAA and NAJAS, the North American Japanese Garden Association too has been a network umbrella organization for the smaller Japanese gardens as well. So that's essentially the three kind of approaches. And as you can see, because of these three approaches, the generating interest, the nurturing and developing, as well as the developing of various networks, we have a really robust, variety of grant programs out there that really cater to a lot of different constituencies. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some possible grant programs that can help support JET alumni chapters out there like yourself. So the Grassroots Exchange and Education Department, which all three of us are under, we have two small grant programs that might be of interest to JET alumni chapters out there. The first being the discretionary grant, and the second being the education grant. So the discretionary grant, and both of these small grant programs are on a rolling basis. So we accept applications at any time of the year. Just contact us, obviously. So the discretionary grant is up to $10,000, and that's usually it's exactly what it says, discretionary grant. So it's essentially anything that helps kind of strengthen various networks, or perhaps your own infrastructure or capacity building. That's kind of more under the discretionary grants jurisdiction and scope of their program. The second one is the education grant. And that is, again, rolling basis, and that is up to $5K. And this actually is more educational in components. So it could be supporting teacher workshops, or for example, festivals or demonstrations in festivals, as well as curriculum development and local outreach efforts that are educational in nature, that usually addresses students of K through 12 and the larger community. So those are two grant programs that might be of interest to you, especially if you're a JET chapter that's really interested in creating or holding new programs that could also attract larger recruitment, and also has an open community component to it as well. So it can generate some interest at the local level about Japan and Japanese culture. The Arts and Cultural Exchange Department also has a couple of grant programs and also things on loan that might be of interest to you. So the JFNY grant for arts and culture, I believe also that is on a rolling basis, and that is up to $5K. Their support is primarily within the Midwest and South, but they do take applications all over the US. And those are a little bit different than our education grant programs, just because they focus more on the arts and culture component. So that could be really anything to a festival or some sort of performance that you might want to bring to at the local level. In addition to that grant program, we have two other items that might be of interest to JET chapters out there as well. The first one being the exhibition of World Heritage sites in Japan. So essentially this is an item that is on loan. It's essentially an exhibit that gets mailed to you, and then you pop up the exhibit, and that's an opportunity for you to hold an event, and people can look at these photo panels all throughout the US. And similarly to that, the Samurai Warrior helmet and armor, those are two sets of samurai armor that are available for loan and use. And say, for example, that you have some sort of cultural event, but you want to add a Japanese kind of tint to it, this would be something that you might consider. And yes, both sets are available that you could put on. So, you know, children can wear them, and there might be some educational component involved to teaching about the samurai sets in there as well. And so, in addition to the arts and culture and the Grassroots Exchange, I did mention as before earlier that we have two offices, one in New York and one in LA, and the LA office focuses more on the Japanese learning, language learning. And so we have a couple of grants that might be of some interest to those out there, to some JET alumni chapters. So the first one being, so we have the Japanese Language Learners Event Grant, which also supports events that are related to speech contests, quizzes, and presentational events focused on language learning. The second one is the Teaching Materials Purchase Grant. So say, for example, you would like to purchase materials that are focused on Japanese language, such as books, dictionaries, you know, AV materials. That would be something that you can consider applying for this purchase grant as well. And finally, there's the Japanese Language Education Project Grant, which helps to provide some sort of financial assistance at the national and state level. That's actually a little bit bigger in that individuals cannot apply. But again, there's more of a component relating to Japanese language education on a larger scale. So those are some ideas, both from Japanese language, you know, arts and culture, and Grassroots Exchange, different types of varieties of grant programs. And so, you know, before you apply, you know, we will have our email addresses up later, but please do reach out to us before you apply. If you're ever even interested in throwing out an idea before you have anything out there, we're more than happy to consult and provide some informal feedback for you to help inform your application. With that being said, you know, when you apply, one kind of requirement that needs to be addressed is the applying institution must have a 501c3 nonprofit status. So there are some JET chapters out there that are small enough or do not have the capacity to have a nonprofit 501c3 status, and we understand that, and that's okay. That's okay. Not all JET chapters are large enough or professionalized enough, and we understand that need too as well. So one idea to kind of circumvent that rule is to perhaps either partner with your local organization, whether it be a local Japan America Society, or a university or an institution. And because most of the time they usually do have a nonprofit status, and there's a way, if they are the applying institution, they can make your application eligible. I did speak to somebody from the JET Rocky Mountain chapter, and they had a great model in which they presented. They worked with the local JAS Colorado in circumventing some of the budgetary restrictions that they faced through some collaboration, and it worked out really, really well to both organizations' benefit. So that might be something that you might want to consider before you apply as well. So please don't think that the nonprofit C3 status should ever deter you. There's always a way. There's always a way, especially in this case. And so putting that aside, I do want to talk a little bit about what we look for when we apply, when people do apply. And so we've always found that successful program components always include a strong dissemination plan, how large is the community impact, and the sustainability of the project. So I'll go through each one of these one by one, but when we talk about dissemination plan, we want to be able to talk about how will this project be properly disseminated? What kind of outputs will be out there? Will the information or the event be shared via website, word of mouth? Like, how will the dissemination plan create a large impact for the project? The second is community impact. Like, does the project have enough wide reach to reach audiences of all ages? Is the project free and open to the public? Those are some things that we also take into account when we evaluate a project. And finally, the most important component is the sustainability. We at CGP and the Japan Foundation always find that sustainability of a project definitely helps us increase its impact. And we are always really happy to see a project not just be a one-off project that never again happens, but that it's continued on in some form or sense, whether after the CGP project ends, you're able to achieve some financial sustainability by gaining more revenue or whatnot. That's also really important for us to kind of consider when we evaluate applications. Is there anything else? Okay, so that's basically us in a nutshell. I have all of our email addresses up here. If you ever want to reach out to us, we are always welcome to hearing your feedback, as well as if any questions that you might have. We're more than happy to help with you, but otherwise than that, we're more than happy to take questions now. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much, Marianne, Takeshi, and Asuka. Now we're taking questions. We have already seen a few come into the chat box, but for those of you who haven't typed anything in yet, you can type your question into the chat box, or you can use the raise hand function next to your name, and I will call on you and allow you to speak and ask your question in person. So the first question we have from Mark Fry. His question is, could we use the Grassroots Exchange discretionary grant to support a local class on Japanese performing arts that our JET alumni chapter gives at our local Japanese Cultural Center, the Japanese Cultural and Community Center of Northern California?
Hi, Mark. Thank you for your question. We love the enthusiasm, and yes, you can totally use the Grassroots Education Grant, or even the discretionary grant to your use for this, just as long as there's some educational or like learning component when it comes to it. We do like the idea that this is being held at a cultural center, so it definitely gives you points in terms of community impact. So yes, I do believe that this would be eligible under that.
Great, thank you, Marianne. I have another question from Mark. He says, we are interested in starting a Japanese language program at a local public high school. Could we use the Japanese language education project grant to fund that?
Yeah. Yes, that would definitely be something, but that would be more under the LA office's jurisdiction because, again, that grant is kind of administered under them. We are more than happy to connect you with the folks over there so you could learn more about it. But yeah, that definitely falls within the Japanese language kind of eligibility.
Great. I have a question for you. I know you mentioned that JETAA chapters can partner with their local organizations that have 501c3 status, like a university or a Japan America Society. Mm-hmm. Could a local chapter also partner with a national or umbrella organization to seek a grant that would, one of these grants that would be held in their local area?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, especially Bahia, if you're volunteering for yourself, yes, absolutely. I didn't want to be presumptuous, but yeah, absolutely. Like, if you guys are up for that task, sure.
Well, you know, we couldn't do all 19 chapters. But it's good to know what the options are. And yeah. So since an organization such as USJETAA or NAJAS, you know, we already receive some funding from CGP, sure. But it's a different type of funding, correct? So we can still apply for these types of grants?
Yeah, and you know, it's the nature too. So we know that, you know, you are, mm-hmm. you know, you're using your 501c3 status to the benefit of another chapter. So yeah, we understand, and that's totally fine. So everybody apply for Bahia.
Well, no, if you have an alternative, I suggest taking it. We can't do everything, but
right.
Talk to me if you're interested. All right, yeah. We have another question from Rachel. Let me, Rachel, I'm gonna allow you I'm gonna unmute you, so you should be able to talk now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Yes.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for organizing all of this. We really appreciate it. So I'm with the JETAA DC chapter. I'm the president of the chapter here in Washington. And I did have a question about the grants. Are there requirements when you receive these grants for monitoring and evaluation, or what are the follow-up requirements like after you receive the money? What do we have to report?
Sure, that's a really, sorry. Thank you so much for your question. That's a really great starter. So usually when you are awarded a grant, when the project ends, we will send you final report templates, and that's usually done 2 months after the project officially ends, because that way we can ensure that all the expenses are done and over with, and we can kind of move forward from that. But what we're looking for essentially is the impact numbers. How many people, like, you know, were you able to meet what you had said in your application, like your target numbers, were they ever met? Also, it's not all, we understand that also at JF and CGP that it's not always about numbers too as well. So we look at qualitative measurements as well, whether in the form of surveys, you know, testimonials or accounts. We do accept all of those, but essentially what we look at in a successful project is whether that project had some sort of impact or influence in the way the chapter kind of changes their programming, or, you know, just successful in any sense that it's carried on or influenced in the way the organization manages. I know that doesn't really answer the question, but we do look at qualitative and quantitative numbers on that end. But we're not so stringent. We just want to report the final numbers, and if there were any qualitative surveys done as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Rachel, for your question. I don't have any more questions coming in right now. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we finish?
Well, we're pretty much done on our end. We're very friendly, so please feel free to reach out to us again. And Bahia, you know, if there's anybody interested, please do share our contact information with them as well. And we look forward to, you know, the possibility of receiving something from you guys. We really appreciate the work the JET chapters do at the local level, and we would just love to hear from you guys in how we can support.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Mark commented that this was a great webcast and very informative, and he is going to follow up with you, and I hope that some of the other chapters do as well.
Yes, please.
And we will be posting this online and sharing it with the JET alumni chapters so that people who were not able to attend tonight will be able to view the webinar and access your contact information so that they can contact you directly.
Yes, that would be perfect.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you for joining in this webinar on our chapter webinar series. We really appreciate all of the speakers and all of the information that you've provided, Marianne. And thank you so much to the attendees for coming and joining us on this webinar. I'd like to let everybody know that we do have another webinar scheduled up as part of our alumni webinar series. And that webinar topic is how to find a career. We will have career counselor and JET alumni Emily Frank from Colorado discussing how to find a career you'll love and how to utilize your JET experience in job searching no matter what field you're going into. So I encourage people to please join us for that webinar. It'll be on August 23rd at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Mountain time, and noon Eastern time. So you can find details about the webinar on our website and on our Facebook page. So thank you all for joining, and stay tuned for the recording to be posted within the next week.
Great.
Thank you all, and have a good night.
Thank you.